Disclaimer: this content is intended for a mature audience. Viewer discretion is advised. I never expected to find myself in this situation, standing in my own living room, heart pounding, hands trembling, completely lost for words. The gift was right there in front of me, carefully wrapped, a simple bow tied on top. But it wasn't the wrapping or even the gift itself that sent a wave of shock through my body. It was what it meant. My stepson, Daniel, had always been polite, respectful, and maybe even a little distant. I understood why. When I married his father, I never expected to take the place of his mother, and I certainly never tried. Our relationship was cordial at best. There was a quiet understanding between us, politeness exchanged at the dinner table, small talk during family gatherings, but never anything truly personal. He was an adult, living his own life, and I figured that was just the way things would always be. That's why when he handed me the gift, I didn't know what to think. His expression was unreadable, his voice calm but firm. "I've been meaning to give this to you for a while," he said, eyes searching mine for a reaction. I hesitated, fingers hovering over the ribbon. Something about the way he spoke sent a chill through me. This wasn't just a random gesture. It wasn't a holiday. It wasn't my birthday. There was no occasion at all. So, why now? And more importantly, what was inside? I took a deep breath and pulled the ribbon loose. The paper crinkled under my touch, the weight of anticipation pressing down on my chest. And as I lifted the lid and saw what was inside, the world around me seemed to freeze. My heart stuttered, my breath caught in my throat, because in that moment I realized this was more than just a gift. It was a message, a revelation, and nothing would ever be the same again. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you will change everything. I stared down at the gift, my fingers trembling as I lifted it from the box. It wasn't what I had expected, if I had even expected anything at all. The weight of it in my hand sent a shiver down my spine, and I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. I glanced up at Daniel, searching his face for an explanation, but he only stood there, watching, waiting. His silence was heavier than words. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my voice. "Daniel, what is this?" His jaw tightened just slightly, a flicker of something unreadable crossing his face. "Just open it," he said, his voice low. There was no anger, no resentment, just something I couldn't quite place. I exhaled and slowly peeled back the final layer, my breath catching the moment I saw what was inside. My stomach twisted. My mind raced through 1,000 possibilities, but none of them prepared me for this. It wasn't just an object, it was a piece of the past, a link to something I thought had been buried long ago. Memories I hadn't dared to revisit in years clawed their way back to the surface. Faces, voices, moments I had locked away because it was easier to pretend they didn't exist. And yet, here it was, brought back to me by the last person I expected. I looked up at Daniel again, my hands tightening around the gift. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. His expression didn't change. "Because I thought you should know the truth." The truth. The words sent a chill through me. My mind was spinning, searching for answers, but none of it made sense. Why now? Why this? I felt my chest tighten, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. There was something in Daniel's eyes that unsettled me. Not anger, not resentment, but something deeper, something unresolved. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about me. This was about him, too. I looked down again, my breath shaky. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air thicker. I wanted to say something, to ask the question swirling in my head, but my throat was dry. Daniel shifted slightly, his hands in his pockets. "I know this is a lot," he said, his voice softer now. But I think it's time you knew. I could feel the weight of his words sinking in. I wasn't sure I was ready, but there was no turning back now. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the object in my hands. It felt heavier now, as if the weight of its meaning was sinking in, wrapping itself around me like an unseen force. My mind raced with questions, but none of them had clear answers. I had spent years carefully constructing my life, believing that some things were better left in the past. And yet, Daniel had just shattered that illusion with a single gesture. I looked at him again, searching for some kind of explanation. He was calm, too calm. His eyes held something I hadn't noticed before. It wasn't just determination. It was something deeper, something personal. "This isn't just about me, is it?" I finally asked, my voice quieter than I intended. Daniel exhaled, running a hand through his dark hair. "No," he admitted, "it's about both of us." A chill ran through me. This wasn't just some old memory he had dug up for no reason. It meant something to him, too. I tightened my grip on the object, my mind spinning. "How long have you known?" He hesitated. "A while." A while. Two simple words, yet they sent another wave of unease through me. That meant he had been holding on to this, waiting for the right moment, or maybe waiting for me to be ready. But I wasn't, not even close. My thoughts jumped to his father, my husband. Did he know? Was this something they had talked about behind closed doors? My chest tightened at the thought. If he knew, why hadn't he told me? "I don't understand," I said, shaking my head. "Why now? What changed?" Daniel let out a slow breath, his expression unreadable. "Because I thought you deserved to hear it from me before you heard it from someone else." His words sent a shiver through me. "Someone else?" I echoed. He gave a small nod. "It's not going to stay a secret much longer." My breath caught in my throat. The walls of the room seemed to close in around me, the weight of whatever was coming pressing down on my chest. This wasn't just an unexpected gift, it was a warning, and for the first time in a long time, I was truly afraid of what came next. A cold wave washed over me as Daniel's words settled in. "It's not going to stay a secret much longer." My heart pounded against my ribs, each beat heavier than the last. I wanted to press him for more. Who else knows? How did they find out? But my throat felt tight, like the answers would change everything the moment they left his lips. Daniel stood there, waiting for me to speak, but what could I even say? My hands trembled as I clutched the object tighter, my mind flipping through every possible scenario. Had someone been digging into the past? Was this about something I had done? Or was it something far worse? Something I didn't know? I took a shaky breath. "Daniel, just tell me the truth. All of it." His jaw clenched slightly. "I wanted to tell you sooner, but I didn't know how. I thought maybe it wasn't my place." His voice was steady, but I could hear the strain underneath. "Not your place." I let out a small, humorless laugh. "Daniel, you just turned my world upside down. If you don't tell me now, someone else will. Isn't that what you just said?" He looked away for a moment, like he was carefully choosing his next words. My pulse pounded in my ears. The silence between us stretched unbearably long. Finally, he sighed. "There's more to this than you think, and once I tell you, you won't be able to unhear it. You won't be able to go back to the way things were." His eyes locked onto mine, and for the first time, I saw something that scared me more than anything else. Regret. I swallowed hard. "Then just say it." Daniel exhaled sharply, as if he had been holding his breath this whole time. "I wasn't the one who found out," he admitted. "I wasn't the first to put the pieces together." A sharp chill ran through me. "Then who?" The answer hung in the air for a moment before he finally said it. You'll find out soon enough. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just about the past anymore. It was about the future and whoever was coming next. They weren't bringing good news. A deep, uneasy silence settled between us. Daniel's words lingered in my mind, heavy and unshakable. You'll find out soon enough. My breath came slow and uneven as I tried to process what that meant. Someone else knew, someone who wasn't him, someone who was waiting for the right moment to strike. But why? And more importantly, who? I glanced at the object in my hands, feeling the weight of it in a new way. It wasn't just a reminder of the past anymore. It was a warning, a message wrapped in secrecy. My grip tightened as a sinking feeling took hold of me. Daniel, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, is this supposed to scare me? His gaze was steady, unreadable. I don't know, he admitted, but you need to be ready. I could feel the tension in his voice, the hesitation in the way he spoke. He wasn't telling me everything. I could sense it. There was another layer to this, something he was still holding back. My fingers curled around the edge of the box as I forced myself to meet his eyes. What aren't you saying? Daniel's expression shifted just slightly. I wasn't going to say anything until I was sure, he muttered. But now, I don't have a choice. A chill ran down my spine. Sure about what? He exhaled, dragging a hand through his hair. Someone's been asking questions, he finally admitted. Digging around where they shouldn't. My stomach twisted. Who? I don't know their name, he said, but I know they've been looking for you. My heart skipped a beat. Looking for me? Daniel gave a slow nod. And whatever they're after, they're not stopping until they get it. A cold dread settled over me. My mind reeled with possibilities, but none of them made sense. Who would be searching for me? What did they want? And why now, after all this time? I felt a deep unease growing inside me. Daniel, if you know something. I don't, he cut in, frustration creeping into his voice. That's the problem. I don't know what they want. I don't know how much they know. But I know they're coming. The room felt smaller, the air thick with uncertainty. My pulse raced as I struggled to make sense of it all. This wasn't just a secret from the past. It was something bigger, something that had been lurking beneath the surface, waiting to resurface. I took a shaky breath, trying to steady myself. Do you think? I hesitated, my voice dropping. Do you think they already know? Daniel's jaw tightened. If they don't yet, they will soon. A knock at the door sent a jolt through me. My breath hitched, my fingers tightening instinctively around the box. Daniel's eyes flickered toward the door, then back to me. They're here. The knock echoed through the room, sharp and deliberate. My breath caught in my throat as I turned to Daniel, but he was already moving, his body tense, his eyes locked on the door. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Neither of us moved. Then another knock, louder this time. My hands tightened around the box, my pulse hammering in my ears. Whoever was on the other side wasn't leaving. And Daniel? He looked like he had been expecting this moment. I swallowed hard. Daniel. He held up a hand, signaling for silence. Then slowly, he stepped forward, his fingers hovering over the doorknob. The door creaked open just enough for me to see the shadow of a figure standing outside. A man, older. His face was obscured by the dim hallway light, but there was something about him, something familiar. Daniel didn't say anything, neither did the man. For a long, suffocating moment, the only sound was my own heartbeat, thudding violently against my ribs. Then the man finally spoke. I think it's time we talked. His voice sent a chill through me, deep, calm, but laced with something else, something calculated. Daniel's grip on the door tightened, but he didn't move aside. About what? Daniel asked, his tone steady. The man let out a slow breath. The truth. A sharp ache spread through my chest. I had spent the past hour thinking the worst, running through every possible scenario, but none of them had prepared me for this, because now that I could see him clearly, I knew who he was, and that changed everything. Daniel looked back at me, his expression unreadable. He didn't need to say it. I could see it in his eyes. He knew too. The man stepped forward, his gaze fixed on me. "You've been looking for answers," he said. "I have them." I forced myself to breathe. "Why now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. His eyes darkened. "Because time is running out." My fingers curled around the edge of the box, my mind spinning. This wasn't just about the past anymore. It wasn't even about secrets. It was about something bigger, something I hadn't seen coming. And the worst part? I had no idea if I was ready for the truth. I stood frozen, staring at the man before me. His presence alone was an answer to a question I hadn't even known I was asking. The weight of the moment pressed down on my chest as I struggled to make sense of it all. The past, the present, everything had suddenly collided in this one moment, and there was no running from it. Daniel shifted beside me, his jaw tight, his posture tense. He had known this was coming, but that didn't make it any easier. I could see it in his face. This was the moment he had been dreading. I forced myself to speak. "Tell me." The man let out a slow breath. "It wasn't supposed to happen this way," he said, "but you deserve to know the truth before someone else twisted it." My hands trembled as I placed the box down, my heart pounding against my ribs. "Just say it." The man nodded. "Your past isn't what you think it is." His words sent a chill through me, but deep down I already knew. I had felt it from the moment I opened the gift. The memories I had buried, the pieces of my life I had convinced myself didn't matter anymore. They weren't just fragments of history. They were pieces of a puzzle, and now, for the first time, I was seeing the whole picture. It wasn't about a secret. It wasn't about a mistake. It was about a choice, one that had been made a long time ago, shaping everything that followed. Daniel finally spoke, his voice low. "And now that you know?" I met his gaze, and for the first time, I truly saw him, not just as my stepson, but as someone who had been carrying the weight of this truth, just like me, someone who had been waiting for this moment, unsure of how it would end. I turned back to the man. "Now," I moved forward,